The 20th of April 2023 https://www.negotiations.com/articles/a negotiation strategy/article and summary. Pre-negotiation strategy plan checklist, Part 1. Checklist to prepare a successful negotiation strategy for any potential conflict and attain the best possible agreement. 9 steps for negotiation preparation success. 9 steps to prepare for a negotiation, including identifying goals, choosing a negotiating style, and compiling options. Winning with your negotiation style's profile. Your negotiation style or profile can define whether you create value and an enduring relationship or grind into a deadlock. What are the positive-negative effects of negotiation? Learn the difference between positive and negative negotiation influences and examine the various actions that impact our negotiating techniques. Types of negotiations. There are 2 opposite types or schools of negotiation: integrative and distributive. This article introduces the important differences between them. The article 9 Steps for Negotiation Preparation Success provides 9 steps to prepare for a negotiation. The steps include knowing your strategy, identifying goals, choosing your negotiating style, preparing a SWOT analysis, listing pre-meeting questions, compiling options, deal packages, determining your alternatives to a negotiated agreement, BATNA, setting a negotiating range, and preparing mentally and physically. The article emphasizes the importance of preparation in achieving successful negotiation outcomes and suggests that tactics and behavior alone will not deliver consistent results. Other sources, such as procurementtactics.com and scottwork.com, also provide additional steps for negotiation preparation, including doing research, negotiating with a team, approaching with a win-win attitude, and understanding your limits. What are the benefits of negotiation preparation? Negotiation preparation offers several benefits, according to various sources. Firstly, it allows negotiators to have a thorough understanding of the situation and every resource available to find a satisfactory outcome for all parties involved, including themselves. Secondly, it grows self-confidence, maximizes value, prevents problems, keeps stress at bay, builds respect, resolves conflicts, and improves profitability. Thirdly, it helps negotiators to prepare, plan, and think ahead, which is crucial to a successful negotiation. Fourthly, it enables negotiators to learn how to prepare for any negotiation, improve their active listening skills to maximize value, and identify strategies to deal with impasse. In summary, negotiation preparation is essential for achieving successful negotiation outcomes and improving negotiation skills. How to prepare for a negotiation? To prepare for a negotiation, there are several steps that negotiators can take. Firstly, they need to have a clear understanding of their organization's objectives and preferred outcomes and put themselves in the other party's shoes to understand their business priorities, pressures, and objectives to determine the best approach to the conversation. Secondly, negotiators need to research both sides and evaluate their goals, including identifying other possible job opportunities and alternatives. Thirdly, they need to engage in a careful self-assessment prior to negotiating, asking 2 main questions as part of their negotiation preparation. Fourthly, negotiators need to know their strategy, identify goals, choose their negotiating style, prepare a SWOT analysis, list pre-meeting questions, and compile options, deal packages. Finally, negotiators need to invest at least 3 times the amount of time they expect to negotiate in their preparation, pacing themselves in the days and weeks leading up to the meeting. In summary, negotiation preparation is a vital first stage of the negotiating process, and the best negotiators engage in thorough negotiation preparation to achieve successful negotiation outcomes. What are some common negotiation tactics? There are several common negotiation tactics that negotiators can use to achieve their goals. One common tactic is to set the bar high and then grudgingly give ground, which is known as extreme mounts, small concessions. Another tactic is to make the first offer, which can anchor the negotiation in the negotiator's favor. A third tactic is to mirror words selectively, which involves repeating the last few words of the other party's statement to encourage them to continue talking. A fourth tactic is to know your target price and walk-away price, which can help negotiators to avoid making concessions that are not in their best interest. A fifth tactic is to create the illusion of control, which involves using body language and other nonverbal cues to make the other party feel like they are in control. Other common negotiation tactics include the use of time pressure, flattery, and the good cop, bad cop routine. It is important to note that while these tactics can be effective, they should be used ethically and with caution to avoid damaging relationships and reputations. What are some common hard bargaining tactics? Some common hard bargaining tactics that negotiators may use include making extreme demands, refusing to compromise, and making greater and greater demands to try to make the other party flinch. Other hard bargaining tactics may include using threats, intimidation, and other forms of unethical behavior to try to gain the upper hand in a negotiation. These tactics can create a vicious cycle of threats, demands, and other hardball strategies that can lead to impasse, distrust, or a subpar deal for everyone involved. Negotiators who use hard bargaining tactics risk missing out on the benefits of integrative negotiations, such as identifying differences in preferences that can be ripe for trade-offs and building trust. It is important to note that while hard bargaining tactics can be effective in some situations, they should be used ethically and with caution to avoid damaging relationships and reputations. What is the difference between hard bargaining and adversarial negotiation? Adversarial negotiation and hard bargaining are similar in that they both involve a competitive approach to negotiation. However, adversarial negotiation is a broader term that refers to a negotiation style in which the parties view each other as opponents and seek to win at the other's expense. Adversarial negotiators may use a variety of tactics, including hard bargaining, to achieve their goals. Hard bargaining, on the other hand, is a specific tactic in which one party refuses to compromise in an agreement and sets high demands. Hard bargaining is often used in distributive negotiations, where the parties are competing over a fixed amount of resources. In contrast, integrative negotiations involve expanding the pie and creating value for both parties. In summary, while adversarial negotiation and hard bargaining share some similarities, hard bargaining is a specific tactic that may be used in adversarial negotiations or other types of negotiations. How do hard bargaining and adversarial negotiation differ? Adversarial negotiation and hard bargaining are both competitive approaches to negotiation, but they differ in their scope and focus. Adversarial negotiation is a negotiation style in which the parties view each other as opponents and seek to win at the other's expense. Adversarial negotiators may use a variety of tactics, including hard bargaining, to achieve their goals. Adversarial negotiation is often characterized by hard, intense bargaining, and it can quickly become a zero-sum game where there is a winner and a loser. In contrast, hard bargaining is a specific tactic in which one party refuses to compromise in an agreement and sets high demands. Hard bargaining is often used in distributive negotiations, where the parties are competing over a fixed amount of resources. While both adversarial negotiation and hard bargaining can be effective in some situations, they should be used ethically and with caution to avoid damaging relationships and reputations. What are some examples of adversarial negotiation tactics? Adversarial negotiation tactics can involve a range of bad faith negotiation strategies, where one party's dishonesty about willingness to negotiate can lead to a zero-sum game where there is a winner and a loser. Some examples of adversarial negotiation tactics include hard bargaining, bluffing, brinkmanship, intimidation, cherry-picking, black and white thinking, and other forms of unethical behavior. Hard bargaining is a specific tactic in which one party refuses to compromise in an agreement and sets high demands. Bluffing involves making false statements or threats to gain an advantage in the negotiation. Brinkmanship involves pushing the negotiation to the brink of failure to gain an advantage. Intimidation involves using threats or other forms of coercion to gain an advantage. Cherry-picking involves selectively choosing information or options to gain an advantage. Black and white thinking involves framing the negotiation as a win-lose situation, where there is no room for compromise or collaboration. It is important to note that while these tactics can be effective in some situations, they should be used ethically and with caution to avoid damaging relationships and reputations. What are some counterintuitive negotiation tactics to use against adversarial tactics? Counterintuitive negotiation tactics can be effective in responding to adversarial negotiation tactics. One counterintuitive tactic is to pretend that you are asking for someone else, which can help to depersonalize the negotiation and reduce the emotional intensity. Another tactic is to ask for advice, which can help to build rapport and establish trust with the other party. A third tactic is to remain calm and suggest a break or caucus if needed, which can help to diffuse tense situations and create space for creative problem solving. Other counterintuitive tactics may include acknowledging the other party's perspective, using humor to lighten the mood, and making a bold move to shift the negotiation dynamic. It is important to note that while these tactics can be effective in some situations, they should be used ethically and with caution to avoid damaging relationships and reputations. In summary, negotiators can use a range of counterintuitive tactics to respond effectively to adversarial negotiation tactics and achieve successful negotiation outcomes. What is hard bargaining? Hard bargaining is a negotiation strategy in which one party refuses to compromise in an agreement and sets high demands. Hard bargaining is often used in distributive negotiations, where the parties are competing over a fixed amount of resources. Some negotiators believe that hard bargaining tactics are the key to success and resort to threats, extreme demands, and even unethical behavior to try to get the upper hand in a negotiation. However, negotiators who rely on hard bargaining strategies may be betraying a lack of understanding about the gains that can be achieved in most business negotiations. Hard bargaining tactics can create a vicious cycle of threats, demands, and other hardball strategies that can lead to impasse, distrust, or a subpar deal for everyone involved. It is important to note that while hard bargaining tactics can be effective in some situations, they should be used ethically and with caution to avoid damaging relationships and reputations. How to stay calm during hard bargaining tactics. Staying calm during hard bargaining tactics can be challenging, but there are several strategies that negotiators can use to stay composed and focused. Firstly, negotiators can take deep breaths and focus on their breathing to reduce stress and anxiety. Secondly, negotiators can try to stay present and focused on the negotiation, rather than getting caught up in emotions or distractions. Thirdly, negotiators can use active listening and questioning techniques to understand the other party's interests and priorities and identify areas of common ground. Fourthly, negotiators can use objective criteria, such as market value or industry standards, to support their positions and avoid getting caught up in emotional arguments. Fifthly, negotiators can use BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, analysis to determine their walkaway point and avoid making concessions that are not in their best interest. Finally, negotiators can try to shift the negotiation dynamic by proposing creative solutions that expand the pie and create value for both parties. In summary, while staying calm during hard bargaining tactics can be challenging, negotiators can use a range of strategies to stay composed and focused and achieve successful negotiation outcomes. What are some common hard bargaining tactics to watch out for? There are several common hard bargaining tactics that negotiators should watch out for. Extreme demands followed up by small concessions is a tactic where one party sets the bar high and then grudgingly gives ground. Piling on is a tactic where negotiators continue to make greater and greater demands until the weight of these demands becomes almost unbearable. Making greater and greater demands to try to make the other party flinch is another tactic where one party keeps making greater and greater demands, waiting for the other party to give in. Other hard bargaining tactics may include using threats, intimidation, and other forms of unethical behavior to try to gain the upper hand in a negotiation. To respond to these tactics, negotiators can use a range of strategies, such as building rapport, active listening, creative problem solving, using objective criteria, and using counter-tactics to deal with specific hard bargaining tactics. It is important to note that while hard bargaining tactics can be effective in some situations, they should be used ethically and with caution to avoid damaging relationships and reputations. What are some tactics to handle hard bargaining? Handling hard bargaining tactics in a negotiation can be challenging, but there are several tactics that negotiators can use to respond effectively. Firstly, negotiators can make a commitment not to engage in hard bargaining tactics themselves and instead focus on building trust, asking lots of questions and exploring differences. Secondly, negotiators can try to understand the other party's interests and priorities and identify areas of common ground to create value for both parties. Thirdly, negotiators can use objective criteria, such as market value or industry standards, to support their positions and avoid getting caught up in emotional arguments. Fourthly, negotiators can use BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, analysis to determine their walkaway point and avoid making concessions that are not in their best interest. Fifthly, negotiators can use counter-tactics to deal with specific hard bargaining tactics, such as calling out extreme demands or using silence to counter attempts to make the other party flinch. Finally, negotiators can try to shift the negotiation dynamic by making a bold move or proposing creative solutions that expand the pie and create value for both parties. In summary, while hard bargaining tactics can be challenging to handle, negotiators can use a range of tactics to respond effectively and achieve successful negotiation outcomes. How to respond to extreme demands? Responding to extreme demands in a negotiation can be challenging, but there are several strategies that negotiators can use to respond effectively. Firstly, negotiators can ask for a principled justification for the extreme demand to understand the other party's reasoning. Secondly, negotiators can propose multiple solutions and invite the other party to improve on them to create a collaborative negotiation environment. Thirdly, negotiators can slow down the pace of the negotiation and lead the other party into a constructive dialogue to demonstrate genuine openness to their perspective. Fourthly, negotiators can consider ignoring take-it-or-leave-it offers to avoid getting caught up in emotional arguments. Fifthly, negotiators can remain calm and focused on the negotiation, rather than getting caught up in emotions or distractions. Finally, negotiators can use objective criteria, such as market value or industry standards, to support their positions and avoid getting caught up in emotional arguments. In summary, while responding to extreme demands can be challenging, negotiators can use a range of strategies to respond effectively and achieve successful negotiation outcomes. How to prepare for negotiations to stay calm. Preparing for negotiations can help negotiators stay calm and focused during the negotiation process. Firstly, negotiators can be prepared by knowing their goals and having a solid understanding of the other side's position. Secondly, negotiators can practice active listening to gather valuable information that will lead to successful deals. Thirdly, negotiators can build rapport with the other party to create a positive negotiation environment. Fourthly, negotiators can practice mindfulness techniques, such as deep breathing and visualization, to reduce pre-negotiation anxiety and stay calm during the negotiation. Fifthly, negotiators can let their mind wander and imagine the best-case scenario to calm their nerves and focus on the end result of the negotiation. Finally, negotiators can practice negotiation skills and techniques to build confidence and reduce anxiety. In summary, preparing for negotiations can help negotiators stay calm and focused during the negotiation process and achieve successful negotiation outcomes. Pre-negotiation strategy plan checklist, Part 1. Summary. This checklist will help you prepare a successful negotiation strategy for any potential conflict and attain the best possible agreement. To perform well, and perform well consistently, we must first learn to prepare. Ask any athlete who spends countless tedious hours preparing for a competition, or a lawyer about to step into a courtroom. At the end of our negotiation training courses, we implore our soon-to-be graduates to book time into their busy calendars to prepare for their negotiations. While many colleagues, clients, and suppliers will demand your time on a daily basis, very seldom will they remind you to invest more time preparing for your negotiations with them. Yet this is precisely what we need to create our successful negotiation strategy. Let's look at a negotiator's checklist to see how we might better prepare for our negotiations. Negotiator's preparation checklist. 1. Assess the situation. Each negotiation is going to be different. No matter how often we've addressed similar situations, we will naturally be negotiating with people who have different styles, goals, and objectives. These people will be coming from different circumstances and have different standards. So, always take stock and gauge which negotiation skills each negotiation will demand from you and your team. 2. What kind of negotiation? There are 3 kinds of negotiations to prepare for. I sense a one-time negotiation, where we will unlikely interact with the person or company again. I sense the start of a repeated negotiation, where we will be meeting the other person or company again. I sense a negotiation where we are going to form some kind of long-term relationship. Most of our business negotiations are likely going to fall in the last 2 categories. We will be handling a lot of repeat negotiations. We will be negotiating with regular suppliers or engaging in labor negotiations with the same union reps. For example, perhaps we will be seeking a long-term negotiated agreement such as a joint venture, where we will be mutually entwined over a long period of time. More time is required to prepare your negotiation strategy for the third type. 3. What type of conflict might we face? There are basically 2 types of conflict situations we may encounter in a negotiation. Conflicts can present themselves singularly or can be a mixture of the two. It is vital that the negotiator carefully analyzes the conflict issues, both individually and collectively, to fully appreciate the unique challenges of each. The first form of conflict might simply be called agreement conflict. This is where one person's views or position is in conflict with another's, or other members of a group. This is a situation that takes into account conflicting views relating to opinions, beliefs, values, and ideologies. For example, 2 executives may have different views about whether a strategic initiative should be prioritized. Another example may consist of a trade dispute between 2 countries, and entail ideological or religious-based differences. Alternatively, the conservative viewpoints of management might conflict with the more left-wing approach of union leaders. The second form of conflict entails the allocation of resources like money, quantity, production, or, simply put, things. Any physical commodity will fall into this category of conflict. Other issues might entail the allocation of resources, as a separate segment of the trade dispute. Resource issues, though, are more tangible as they comprise knowable items or particular products. One glaring example occurs when subsidized farmers of one country dump cheaper products onto the market of another country, at the expense of the indigenous farmers of that country. By analyzing the types of conflict into categories, negotiators can have a better understanding of the real measure of the disputes, and frame or focus their strategies more effectively. 4. What does this negotiation mean to us? There are only two reasons why we enter into a negotiation. The first reason occurs when, out of necessity, we have to. This could be due to some immediate need, such as urgency to find a particular supplier. It could also be that we face severe cutbacks in personnel if we can't increase our business. The second reason occurs when we are seeking out an opportunity. This situation may arise simply because an opportunity has sprung up, where we can increase our overall business at an opportune time. The reason for entering into a negotiation will affect both our approach, negotiation strategy, and also our relative negotiating power in comparison to the other side. 5. The ripple effect. We also need to ask ourselves whether the results of the negotiation we are conducting will affect other negotiations or agreements later. Many companies today have international interests. An agreement with a company in one country may affect how talks will be impacted or influenced later with other companies in other countries. It's vital that we, as negotiators, consider the impact or consequences of an agreement in developing our strategy. 6. Do we need to make an agreement? We either enter into negotiations because we have to or because we want to. Part of our strategy will involve a careful analysis of our BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. If an agreement is absolutely essential and we have few alternative options, in the event of talks collapsing, our BATNA will affect our strategy. Alternatively, the negotiated agreement may not be essential because we have a strong option and can walk away with confidence. This also would influence the approach to our strategy. 7. Do other negotiators need to formally approve the agreement? Many agreements made during the negotiated process require formal approval or ratification before an agreement is official. Once negotiating management and union members have reached an agreement, union members may need to vote before the agreement is accepted. A board of directors, CEO, stakeholders, or other outside constituents may also need to review and ratify an agreement before the agreement can come into effect. 8. Is the clock ticking? Time has an impact on the course of negotiations from two perspectives. First, there are deadlines that might be imposed to either make or break an agreement. Offers with expiry dates may be tendered. Time can be both a tactical weapon, who does it hurt more to delay, and strategic imperative, who risks missing the boat to competitors. Second, we all know that time is money. Negotiations consume our time, and a factory or production line that shuts down while the negotiation clock is ticking costs money. The point to remember is that the longer the negotiations drag out, time will negatively affect the bottom line. Corporate Negotiation Strategy Checklist, Part 2. Summary. Part 2 of this article provides additional advice on how to develop a successful negotiation strategy and create a better proposal while negotiating a solid business agreement. By Stephen Roberts. These are the remainder of factors that corporate negotiators need to take into account preparing their negotiating strategy. 9. Your place or mine? In much the same way as sports teams enjoy a home advantage, common negotiators playing away from home need to adjust their game plan and corporate negotiation strategies. There are three possibilities to consider when deciding whether talks will occur. We can either hold the talks in their offices, our offices, or at a neutral domain. We might choose the latter so no one has the psychological and resource advantage of holding the negotiations on their premises. Sometimes, deciding upon whether negotiations take place can open up a whole new can of worms, especially in the case of international disputes, for example. 10. Will we be under the public microscope? Negotiations are often private affairs with little fanfare, until an agreement is signed. There are also agreements that are advertised afterwards, to maximize the mutual benefit both sides obtain. On other occasions, negotiations may be held in strict secrecy. Then, there are the highly publicized occasions when the press becomes actively involved. It could be that one of the negotiating parties uses the powers of the press to lever an advantage to sway and manipulate the outcome. We need only scan the daily newspapers to understand the importance of how public involvement can influence and add intense pressure to some negotiations. The press can be utilized as a public forum to embarrass our opponents into action, or to deflect their corporate strategy. Press releases and information leaked to the press are often to use as an effective strategy in the negotiation process. 11. Will we need a third party? Third parties have many different functions and roles to play in developing a corporate negotiation strategy. They may act as agents, intermediaries, translators, consultants, or other specialists who have an expertise that one or both parties require. There are occasions when a neutral third party will act as a facilitator or chairperson, to manage the negotiations such as in multi-party negotiations, inter-organizational negotiations, or even international negotiations. Then, there are the other occasions when we hit a roadblock, or impasse in our negotiation. During these times we may use a neutral third party to act as a mediator or an arbitrator, to either facilitate an agreement or to impose an agreement, such as in a labor dispute for example. 12. Who is going to blink first? There are situations when we have to decide how a proposal or offer is to be presented, or in deciding who is going to go first. Will we make an informal proposal before we start the negotiations, or wait until we meet face to face? Will we be prepared to make an offer after listening to their proposal, or do we need more information? Will we respond right away, or refer the matter to our constituencies? Will it be to our advantage to be first in making an offer or proposal, to set an anchor around which the talks revolve? Or will it be better to hold our cards tight to our chest and let the other side go first? Of course, this will all relate to the issues, positions, goals and objectives that will determine our approach. These are very serious questions that we need to intelligently address, before we begin our talks. 13. Who are the decision makers? Before we enter into the negotiations, we must establish who is going to make the decisions. What is our authority and who do we report to in our organization? Similarly, what are the authority levels of our counterparts? Finally, can we make an agreement in principle, or an unofficial agreement that will likely stand the test of scrutiny? 14. How far will we push it? Negotiations can be a one-shot occurrence where one party comes right out and says this is a one-time offer, take it or leave it. There are some instances where haggling is not considered acceptable, and will not be tolerated by the other party. Other situations will drag out into the equivalent of a marathon ping-pong match, as each party bounces offers and counter-offers back and forth. We need to know who we are dealing with, before we get too cute and find ourselves cut out of the opportunity altogether. It also depends on the offer and proposal, in relation to the circumstances such as time considerations, need, and many other factors. 15. Are we strong or weak? Negotiation skills aside, two or more parties who are about to engage in a negotiation seldom operate from an equal power base. If one party has something that we desperately need, for our company's survival and we have no alternatives, then we may find ourselves negotiating at a disadvantage no matter how dominant our market position. This all relates to our BATNA and how we stack up against our potential counterpart. Size is not necessarily relevant, as we've all heard the old biblical account of David versus Goliath, and how that conflict turned out. Weakness can be countered by strengthening our BATNA, or even by finding allies to support our position and add to our strength. We should consider seeking routes to diminish the power base of our counterparty where possible, before and during our negotiations. Conclusion: corporate negotiation strategies need to be developed by considering a whole host of factors that might have a powerful impact on our success. It is also wise to remember that our strategy has to be flexible and will need to be adjusted as the game plays itself out. We cannot know everything before we go into our first meeting, so we need to prepare to adjust our strategy and tactics as the situations warps and changes shape. Flexibility is vital, but good preparation is essential.